today. This is absolutely a note-taking talk, as are most of our messages. But having Trent here with us today is absolutely an honor. It's kind of a surprise as well. Initially, as you probably noticed on the little flyer that I created, it had me as the teacher. And I was with Trent this past weekend in Canada at the Canadian Summer Kickoff Conference. And he saw the poster and was like, oh my gosh, can I get on this? Can I help you out with this? And I said, absolutely. Like, anytime Trent Booth wants to help out, you know, I'm Jesus take the wheel kind of thing. Like, he can jump on in there and really give us the goods. And one of the reasons why I chose this topic, so last year we didn't really take any books and do any kinds of teachings. It was mostly panel discussions, kind of the things that you've seen already with the previous calls we've had. But I really believe that this book, The 1 Minute Manager, is a fundamental book to really understand as a vector manager, and it simplifies things. You know, there are so many plates that we have to spin as a vector manager, and sometimes the plate that ends up dropping is the plate of development, of management, of people management. This book, I think, is almost like a crutch in a way, where it really helps you keep things simple, keep things straightforward, and really helps you get in touch with your people in a systematic way that's simple, easy to understand, and it's also duplicatable. So not only can you teach this to your people, but the more you do it with your people, the more they will start doing it to themselves and to the rest of your team. And you will just create a really healthy team culture through this book. So like I said, I'm actually going to give the call to Trent to really dive deep on this book. For those of you who don't know Trent, I'm going to give you a quick bio. If you don't know Trent, you're going to get to know Trent, because he's absolutely an incredible asset to vector marketing. He's actually worked for Vector for almost his entire adult life. So he's coming up on 26 years now, which Trent, it's older than me. So you've been with Vector alive, and
Nice.
I'm willing to say that's probably older than everybody else on this call as well. Trent started in Calgary, Alberta, and in 1993, and then he went on to pilot the next year, where they won a Silver Cup. So Trent is a Silver Cup winner. He also wanted to DVM at 20 years of age, that he actually moved across the country, across Canada, to open up Montreal. So those of you that don't know much about Canada, Calgary is right above Montana. Montreal is above like Maine area. So Trent, at 20 years old, packed up his bags, moved across Canada to Montreal, which, by the way, is a predominantly French-speaking part of Canada. So not only did he have to learn French to run this office, but he had to leave his family behind and go start something brand new. Montreal, by the way, is a city of about 3 million people. So that gave Trent the opportunity to become a recruiting beast. So as a branch in Montreal, he launched 99 people and sold $252,000 in 1995. I think that was when the homemaker was like $600. And Trent, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But that's a lot of homemaker. That's a lot of knives. Now in 2001, Trent launched 636 people. 636. That's an incredible number. So obviously, as you can probably tell, he was really good at recruiting and connecting with people. So John Kane, who's my boss and now is Trent's boss, brought him in and his family down to US from Ottawa in 2004. In 2012, Vector created the role that Trent currently holds, which is the Training and Leadership Development Manager, where most of his days are spent mentoring and coaching DMs and DVMs. Trent's personal mission statement is to encourage, inspire, and equip leaders to become the best versions of themselves. And like I said, everyone, we are so fortunate to have Trent on this call. I am so fortunate to get to work with Trent on a daily basis. He is absolutely an inspiration in my life. He's someone that I look up to and I've learned so much from. And I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to learn an incredible amount from Trent. So with that being said, Trent, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Shelby. Hi, everybody. Excited to talk to the branch ImPACT. It's my first time this year. I think I was on last year, at least for one call. Can't remember if I hosted or.
Yeah, it was like an accountability call of some sort back during SC2.
Nice. That's right. There you go. It was in the middle of SC push week, some kind. In any case, excited to be able to reach out to the group before the summer. And this topic in particular, the 1 Minute Manager, is really close to my heart. I was telling Shelby in Calgary, this is a book that I read as a 19-year-old. I was an assistant manager, and I was able to implement everything in the book the next day. So it is such a simple book. Somebody told me the other day it's 49 pages. It's longer than that. It's longer than 49, but it's not 100. So it's a relatively short book. It's a very simple book, and yet 35 plus years later, it still stands up with new editions and reprints, etc. It is. It's funny, they charge $20 for it. This little tiny book with no pictures because it is so powerful. And don't let the fact that it's very simple dissuade you from diving deep with it. So the 1 Minute Manager, some thoughts today would be that we would do the deep dive into how we can specifically apply it and assimilate it to Vector. So if there's the art and science of leadership, I believe that the simplest infusion of science of leadership can be gleaned from the 1 Minute Manager. If I could see more of you, I'd ask for some show of hands who's actually read it, but I can only see, let's see. Why don't you wave at me like so if you've read the 1 Minute Manager. Nice. Keep the wave going. If you've read it, keep the jazz hands going. If you've read 1 Minute Manager. Now keep the jazz hands going if you would say, hey, I got this thing mastered. I could do like a 3-minute pitch. If they asked me right now, I could do the 3-minute elevator pitch for the 1 Minute Manager. Jazz hands? All right. Well, I'm glad we have the call. My desire is at the end of this call, you'd be closer to that. And here'd be the reason why. There's a lot of really good books out there, and I would suggest that we not worry about the good books, but we really hone in and focus on the great books. This would be one of those great books. Specifically, there's 3 pillars, right? 3 pillars within the 1 Minute Manager. The 1 Minute Manager talks about 1 minute goal setting, 1 minute praising, and 1 minute redirect. Now, if you've got an older copy, they'd call it the 1 minute reprimand. They changed just the title of it. The way that what they were describing even 35 years ago was a redirect, not so much a reprimand, which has more of a negative connotation to it. The 3 are very simple. My desire here is not necessarily to train you. You want to read the book. You want to not just read it to say, hey, I've got it done. And I've noticed in my years, a lot of people say, hey, I've read it, but I don't remember much of it. That's like reading it and putting it as a trophy on your shelf. If it has not changed or informed your behavior, you're missing out, and you want to grab that book. Put whatever book you're reading right now away, maybe throw it out your car window and pull the 1 Minute Manager back out and read it for mastery. So here, let me give you the quick breakdown. And again, this is not to train you on it so much as to make the sale. Here is why you want to read the 1 Minute Manager. And Shelby had mentioned for development, I absolutely believe that the seeds of your Leadership Academy, the seeds of whoever you're going to develop throughout the summer, are planted in the training seminar. And they can be planted right with this 1 Minute Manager process. And what's even more beautiful is if you've got new assistants, like some of your assistants you're going to go out with just started, like January program, they've been in the business for 100 days. You can put this book in their hands, and if they do any other Leadership Academy, if they just study the 1 Minute Manager for mastery, I guarantee you that they will bring value to your business, and they will drive behavior. They'll drive activity, which will, of course, drive sales and recruiting. So the 1 Minute Manager, the 1 minute the 1 minute goal setting is very first. Now, if you've read the book, you know that he means it's not literally 300 seconds. He doesn't mean it's literally 5 minutes, or 1 minute, in this case, 60 seconds. He's saying it's just very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated or drawn out. They don't need 8 pages. In fact, most of the people, when they start working with us, they really only need to know about a half dozen things that make about 80% of the difference. In other words, if we can make very clear in no uncertain terms exactly what is expected. So, for example, if we were asking them to draw a square, we would show them an example of a perfect square that they could look at. We would show them how to draw that as a right-handed and left-handed person, where to start on the page, where to end on the page, make very clear in no uncertain terms exactly what excellent looks like. 1 minute goal setting. As we're doing that, we ask them that if they understand. You might even have them repeat back to you, hey, help me understand what you understand from what I explained to you. And are you clear on this? The idea is that once they're clear on it, we would suggest then that we're committed to it. Say, hey, at this point, you're agreeing to do this work, and if for some reason you're not doing this work, I'm going to need to come back to you, and we're going to need to check on it. When you're doing this work, though, we're going to reinforce that as a positive behavior. So are you clear on the work that's expected of you? We get a yes, we get buy-in, we get the yes that I'm going to do this, the commitment on the front end. 1 minute goal setting, we make very clear in no uncertain terms specifically what they're going to do. And listen, whether we're talking about the role playing training, whether we're talking about the names list, whether we're talking about how to apply this, coming back with PR names, we make very clear in no uncertain terms exactly what we're looking for. The 1 minute goal setting leads into 1 minute praising. Now, what's interesting is I find managers tend to scrimp and save on the first two and go heavy on the reprimand. They go heavy in the redirect, and they go light on the goal setting, and they go light on the praising. Hear me when I say this. The heavier you go on making really clear what it is that's expected, the more emphasis you place on them really getting it and being really clear on what it is that you're looking for, the better shot that they've got of doing it. And then if we reinforce that positive behavior, that's really what the 1 minute praising is all about. When we give a 1 minute praise, it's so funny. It shouldn't be hard in Vector for us to buy into this because many of you have experienced it. Even if this is a new concept to read, you've experienced being praised for doing something right. And this is not what people are used to. If they've been a high performer at school, if they've been a high performer at sports, right, or music, they're not used to hearing, hey, way to go on that note, or well done on coming in at the right time, or hey, great job with the 99. They don't usually hear great job on the 99. A lot of times we hear, hey, what happened on the 1? How do we not get 100? Which is crazy. What I'm suggesting is that we want to reinforce positive behavior. So anything that's real, anything specific that we can praise that we see them doing early, not only improves the chance of them continuing that behavior, it also reinforces the fact that they've got it. Sometimes they did it by accident, but now they can do it intentionally. The key is that we make it specific. So for example, if we're in training, I would say something to the effect of, hey, great job with the role play. I really like how you're using your voice tone to do different inflections. That really makes it sound like you're connecting with a customer. You're communicating more than just talking. And now that's something that they can reinforce. Anytime I can praise this person, especially in public, it also reinforces it with other people around them. What we're going for is specific praise. What is less helpful is generic praise. Like, hey, way to go. You're awesome. And hear me right, I do this quite a bit. I'm very guilty of the generic praise. You're the man. Well, they don't know how to repeat being the man. Hey, way to go, sister. You crushed it. Well, they don't know what crushed it necessarily means. So the more specific that I can be, and keep in mind as a 1 minute manager, as I start noticing more, this forces me to notice what is good that's going on around me. So the more that I'm noticing what's happening and reinforcing what's positive, I'm also becoming consciously aware of what is going well and what's working, so I can also help to reinforce that with other people around me and reinforce it with them perhaps when they start doing it. What also happens here when we catch them doing something right, as I've studied psychology and coaching now, it turns out that establishes trust. When we catch them doing something right, it creates what experts call psychological safety. Psychological safety leads to trust. When they feel like safe in your environment, when they feel like this is a place where they can be creative, they can be them, and it's just really an encouraging thing. When they feel good, people perform. Some thoughts here. I'm going to come up for air here. Shelby, what you got for us?
Yeah, I actually wanted to jump in and just emphasize how important what Trent just said actually is. And it's one of those things, I think in Vector, we actually are more used to the idea of celebrating one's success as opposed to, outside of Vector. I think that's one of the beautiful things about Vector. So I think we all innately know the power in celebrating others and how as a manager we want to make our team feel good. But it's really important that we take the time to define what it is that is good. So like Trent said, you know, he's guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. Of just saying, hey, great job. Hey, you're doing an awesome thing. Hey, you really did well today. You know, what does that actually mean is incredibly valuable. And not only does it make you more aware of what is going good and what is going well, but it shows the person that you're working with, that you're coaching, that you're really, truly paying attention to them. Like, think about just how you would feel if someone specifically complimented you on something that you were probably trying to do, as opposed to saying, great job. You know, that definitely makes you feel better. The second thing that I wanted to say in regards to what Trent was just bringing up was, again, the power of positive reinforcement, the power of praising is scientifically proven to increase your productivity in sales. So I've made a live video in the past that went into the Facebook group, but and you might have heard me talk about this at some division meetings if I've spoken recently at your division meeting. There was a study that came out from Harvard Business Review that looked at low-performing sales teams, mid-performing sales teams, and high-performing sales teams. And the study was looking at the manager's role in creating a low, mid, or high-performing sales team from specifically what the manager was saying to the sales team. What the study found was that the low-performing sales teams were hearing a 2-to-1 ratio of negative to positive comments from their sales manager. So 2 times more negative than they were positive. The mid-performing sales team was hearing a ratio of 3-to-1 positive to negative comments from their sales manager. The high-performing sales team was hearing a ratio of 6-to-1 positive to negative comments from their manager. So that's why this stuff really matters, and it matters that you're doing it in public. So even you don't have to necessarily tell each individual person 6 times more positive things than negative, but if 3 people hear you saying positive things twice to each person, that equals 6, and that is effective as well. So just those are some things to consider with what Trent said, because that is just such an important point that he just made. So go ahead, Trent.
Cool. So keep in mind, this is not just positive for the moment and positive for your team. There's another element here, which is we earn a platform to bring difficult feedback. And this is also important here because I would suggest that sometimes branches will struggle with one of 2 extremes. I hear them saying, hey, I'm too nice. And I would actually disagree with that. I don't know that we can be too nice. The challenge is we can confuse being nice and empathetic with not holding them accountable, with not holding them to goals that they've said that they were going to go and hit. And the reality is, in many cases, it's really not about them being nice. It's actually about them wanting so badly for the person to like them. The reality is we have to have difficult conversations with people. As leaders, we're going to have redirect moments. And, you know, the reality is I've got more opportunities to exercise this as a dad now, as a parent, than I do as a manager. So a lot of my stories these days kind of are around me having hard conversations with my kids. Hard or difficult conversations don't necessarily mean combative or yelling matches, but because I care about these kids, I'm going to pull them aside when they're off track and pull them back on track. So if you fly, and both Shelby and I just returned from Calgary, Canada. So as I was flying from Calgary to Newark, the reality is experts will say that the plane will be off track as much as 95% of the flight. Now, I've yet to start off towards Newark and wind up in Atlanta or wind up in Montreal instead. We always land in Newark because the pilot, the autopilot, right, is designed to constantly course correct, to constantly redirect. And what's great about that redirect is then eventually you get to where you want to go. So as managers, we shouldn't be surprised or disappointed at the fact we're going to need to redirect people. What I like about the 1-minute manager model is that we've made clear on what the path is. We've made very clear on what the GPS is, if you will. We've kind of started with that blue dot on the one side and the red pin of where we're going on the other. And we have a good sense of where that's turn by turn going to be to get us there. but we're also open to the fact we're going to need to perhaps course correct if we make a wrong turn. I have to make a couple U-turns in there. And the 1 minute redirect piece is really important to be able to do that. So once we've established and had the 1 minute goal setting, then we have the 1 minute praising. 1 minute praising builds trust and builds a platform for us to be able to have those difficult conversations with people, the 1 minute redirect. And Kenneth Blanchard would say in the 1 minute manager, the key is to make very clear in no uncertain terms what's expected at the goal setting level, make very clear in no uncertain terms what they did right. So we're giving them specific feedback. And for the 1 minute redirect, it's making very clear in no uncertain terms the behavior that we're challenged with, the behavior that is off. And something that's very important to understand is we're challenging the behavior, not the person. So we're attacking the behavior, not the person's essence, not who they are. Now, it sometimes can be hard for them to differentiate that, especially if in the past they've been attacked. Why are you so stupid? Is something that parents say to their kids. Why are you so dumb? Or what's wrong with you? Is something that parents will say to their kids instead of addressing, hey, why wouldn't you bring your homework home? Or tell me what you were thinking in this scenario. So the idea is that we need to be very specific in challenging and attacking and tackling the behavior while still caring for the individual. So as we're having the 1 minute redirect, it's very important that we're not frustrated. It's very important that we're not doing it in an emotional place. It's okay to describe to the person how I'm feeling, but what's more important is that we can really connect with the person and walk them through what specifically is missing here. So for example, if I've got somebody that's coming late, and this is a pretty common one, we always agree in training to coming vector time. At least in my organization, I can't imagine it's changed that much. Coming vector time is 15 minutes early. We explain the why. And I asked the buy-in and training, hey, folks, can we all agree to come here 15 minutes early? So in a worst-case scenario, the bus or something happens and you're there on time. And vector time. Anyways, when somebody comes late, I'll pull them aside. I'll say, hey, listen, I'm glad you're here. Catch up. Somebody beside you there can get you some notes. Hey, let's you and I catch up afterwards real quick, okay? And it's not like menacing, I'm going to bring the wood later. It's not like you're in trouble. I'll say, hey, let's catch up later, okay? Because I do want to follow up with them. I'm applying the positive bias, and I'm assuming there's a good reason for them being late. But when I pull them aside, and here's the key, we always do the 1 minute redirect in private. So Shelby was talking about how valuable it is to praise in public, but we correct or redirect in private. So we want to protect their integrity. We want to protect how they feel, and they're going to be more threatened, I think, in a group setting versus one-on-one. It's still hard one-on-one. And as a manager, I'm going to need to cut in this moment, and I understand that. Just like a surgeon understands to be able to heal you, I need to cut you in this moment. I'm going to use a scalpel to do that, not a rusty old scabbard or a chainsaw, right? I'm going to cut as least amount as possible. I want as little blood as possible. I know this is going to hurt for you. So when I pull them aside, I'll say, hey, listen, Shelby, you were late for training, and we agreed during training that you would come 15 minutes early for everything. So I'm assuming when that happens, you got something big that happened, but now I'd like to hear what that was. And, oh, you just didn't account for traffic. Okay. Listen, Shelby, I'm happy to extend grace because I'm going to need grace. I'm sure I'm going to be late at some point for a meeting, but when we've got vector time, this is something we're all agreeing to. It's very important that we can all count on each other here. So I want you to understand that me having this redirect conversation with you, and this is a difficult conversation. So far, it's the most difficult of our career. In fact, I want you to understand that I'm having this conversation with you because I care about you as a leader. I believe that you're better than this. I believe that after this conversation, we probably won't ever have to have one like this again, right? Okay, so what we're going for is 15 minutes early. Can I get you to agree with me on this one, that you're going to be here on time going forward? Great. Hey, listen, after this, I'm not going to remember this conversation. I don't bury the hatchet with the handle sticking out. I forgive and forget, and we'll move on. But I want to make very clear that being late is just not acceptable here. In fact, if this did happen again, I'd be forced to remember this conversation, and that next conversation should appropriately be a little more fierce. Would you agree that that sounds fair? Now, here's where I want to open up for some questions here or some comments. I imagine Shelby's got some thoughts here. Specifically, what I'm driving at here is the fact that, hey, this is a hard conversation and we're attacking the behavior. It's appropriate to attack the behavior. As a dad, I'll tell you, sometimes I'm even saying, hey, it frustrates me when this happens. I care about you. This behavior is unacceptable. So we're attacking the behavior, not the individual. And we're trying to restore the person on the back end of that as well. The restoration is, hey, after this conversation, I'm not going to remember it. I'm handling it right away. And then we're moving forward. However, if this happens again, we're going to have to escalate things. Does that sound fair to you? So we end it where we restore the person, give them a little high five, if appropriate, a little side hug, whatever it is that we can be able to move forward and kind of restore the person there. So 1 minute goal setting, we make very clear, no uncertain terms, what's expected. 1 minute praising when they do it. We give them little high fives, a little bit of gold dust that is specific to what they're doing. So they got a shot of repeating it. And then finally, the 1 minute redirect. So when they are off course, we get them right back on track. The reality is, if you care about them, you will get them back on track. So the whole idea of I'm too nice to people, no. You're being a coward and you're not wanting to face the difficult conversation. That's very different than being nice. In fact, there's really not much nice in that at all. If my kid is stumbling into traffic as a toddler, it's not nice to let them walk into traffic because they might be upset if I pull them back from the road. I need to pull them back from the road if I'm a good dad. I need to have difficult conversations, redirect conversations with our people. If we care about them, we'll have the difficult conversations, but we're going to do it in a way that's not where we're frustrated, we're taking out our emotions on them. We're doing it in a way that we're addressing the behavior and resetting and redirecting towards the work and the behavior that they should be doing. So this is usually where there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of comments. I also need to acknowledge that, hey folks, just because we teach this, and even if your managers taught it, even if your manager handed you the 1 minute manager, it's very difficult for us to function like this all the time, right? So I'm recognizing the fact that some of you might be going, I haven't seen anything like this in my organization. I would figure that's probably more the exception to the rule. Many of you are going, wow, that makes sense. When I see Larry Manley doing this, that's what he's doing. Wow. I think Larry read 1 minute manager? I'm willing to bet he did. But if there's questions here, I'd like to be able to come up with those. You can either place them in the chat or give me a little jazz hands if I can see you on videos. Many of you don't have that opportunity. Hey, if you're driving, I'm going to ask that you keep your hands straight and don't even make eye contact. Maybe even pull over for a little bit so we can connect, because we don't want any distracted driving out there.
And I want to jump in here really quickly.
Please do.
Open it up for questions because, again, what you just said was really, really, really great. And just reinforce, the question that you ask at the end of the 1 minute redirect, where it's going to get you to agree to this, and then you include the new standard or the standard that they were not upholding themselves to. And you remind them that you're going to forget this conversation, and you kind of take the intensity down by saying, I'm going to bury the hatchet without the handle sticking out. Like, I think that's brilliant. And for a lot of you out there, I'm sure you were furiously writing notes. Like I said, this is recorded, so you can go back, slow it down, script it out, do all that stuff. So I'm going to ask that any questions you have for Trent, do not fall in line of, can you repeat yourself? Because that's why we have it recorded. So you can go back and rewatch this. But I do have a question for you, Trent. Now, in a situation where someone, so I remember when I was a branch manager, there was definitely a certain time where it was middle to end of the summer. From a recruiting standpoint, I was kind of getting my wits' end with a lot of the craziness that can come in the summer. And I had a girl who disrespected me in training. And in that moment, my emotions were really high, and I definitely did not react the way that I should have if we were applying the 1 minute manager. So what would be your suggestion to a branch manager when something happens between them and a sales rep that requires a 1 minute redirect, but in the moment that it happens, emotions run high? Do you recommend that branch step aside and go, collect themselves? Like, what would you say to get your emotions down so that you don't attack the person and instead you attack the behavior?
Hey, what a great question, because that's usually when we do miss, that's usually how we miss, right? Is we get triggered, and now I'm raging emotionally, and now I'm not at my best. In fact, Shelby, in all disclosure, you saw me get triggered a little bit this past weekend in Calgary, right? People weren't paying attention during my message, and I called them out. If I had a do-over, I probably would handle that a little differently. So, it's not housing them, but at the same time, it's not my best work. So you've seen that commercial, the Snickers commercial, "You're not you when you're hungry." Do you know the one I'm talking about? Yeah. Right? When they got other actors, Betty White or something like that, playing the other actor. The point being that, hey, when we get triggered like that, when emotions start to run high, our intellect goes way low, and our leadership, our LQ, or leadership quotient, goes way down. Certainly our emotional intelligence goes way down in that moment as well. So what I'd recommend that you do is buy yourself as much time as you can buy yourself some time. Take a moment. You don't have to handle it right now. In fact, you probably shouldn't handle it right now. If you're going in and you're kind of like all fired up, I'm like, nope, you're just going to buy a minute. In fact, I would encourage you, while you're calm and lucid and chill, to decide right now what you're going to do when, not if, when you get triggered this summer, what are you going to do? And already I'm willing to bet each of you has some coping mechanisms of how to self-regulate, how to pivot out of frustration into grace, or pivot into patience, or pivot into amusement. That's one of my favorites, right? When I'm tempted to get frustrated, to kind of step out of it and see if I can't laugh at it. I might even laugh, which is actually really helpful for me. Whatever it is for you, I'm going to encourage you to choose something where you can pivot from this frustration into something different. So if I was to go back to this situation this weekend, where a high-level person that I totally coach, like, in other words, should totally know better and not be talking in the middle of my talk, and I'm getting triggered, I should have pivoted through frustration into amusement. The reality is I tried that 3 or 4 times, and then he kept talking, and then I just lost my mind. So to encourage you, you're still 20 years later, you might be making the same mistakes like me. Maybe you'll roll through them, but that's okay. The point being that if we at least can have a plan in advance, we've got a shot. So in advance, if I decide how I'm going to react, what I'm going to do to regulate, what I'm going to do to buy some time, and just refuse to scratch the itch, refuse to act on impulse and act on anger. When I'm highly charged emotionally, that is not the time for me to have the 1-minute redirect. The reality is you almost can't help yourself. You're probably going to slip out of the redirect and into leadership abuse, which where you're just hurting the person because you're frustrated. And the reality is your punches, when they land a lot harder because you're a leader at this point. And for some of you, this is the first time you've had a true, pure leadership role. And maybe you could get away with it as an older brother or an older sister, or maybe as an assistant. But the responsibility that we have at this point is we are the top dog in the tall cotton. Like, it all buck stops here. We are the top of the food chain in that office. So we our words have more authority and they cut more, which is why I believe it's so much more important for leaders for us to be really paying attention on an emotional intelligence level to where we're at. If we're not in a good spot, that we just decide to wait before we cover the 1-minute redirect. I should also mention this. The 1-minute redirect is always in person. I mean, at the very least, video chat, maybe over the phone if it has to become. It is never over text. I'm going to say that again. Never text or email. If it's got to be a difficult conversation, folks, you're going to need every ounce, every single percentage point you can mop up. And you want to be there. You want to see eyeball to eyeball and be able to read how they're hearing it. You want them to be able to not only hear your words, but see how you're communicating it so that they can see the compassion in your eyes. They might not be able to see the compassion in your eyes on the text. And something that actually was innocuous could be very inflammatory, very combative, coming across as an email or as a text. So please, for this generation especially, I know I'm talking to a group that would prefer typically to text than to call. Let's face it. Even as a 45-year-old man, I would rather order pizza via my app than I would calling somebody. But when we're talking about something as important as a redirect, we want to be able to do that eyeball to eyeball in person as best we possibly can so we can handle their heart and well. So I'm hoping I've answered the question there, Shelby, of what do we do if we're triggered in this moment, we're frustrated. I'm encouraging you to A, buy some time, B, see if you can't self-regulate. At the very least, choose to handle the behavior and not attack the person. Once you calm down, for you to be able to just then do the same redirect as you've been trained, the key is to be able to self-regulate in the moment. So if I just can't come down emotionally, I'm not going to handle it right now as best I can. I mean,
So
there's an exception to every rule. Please do.
My follow-up question is, and how do you avoid avoiding it? In the sense of, okay, if I'm buying myself time, it could be easy then just to end up avoiding the whole situation in general.
Sure. And some of us do certainly tend towards avoidance. So for example, my wife is more wired where she wants to avoid conflict altogether. That's less me. In fact, my challenge is I usually more invite conflict or even exacerbate it. So we're a pretty good combination. But if you are more one of those avoidance type people where you're looking to really avoid that, I'm going to encourage you to maybe avoid it in the moment. That's fine. But give yourself a timeline in terms of, hey, what would be too long? And you might even think through some situational circumstances where you might figure out, okay, if somebody's late, I'm not going to handle it in the moment, but I don't want to let them leave today without addressing that as best I can. If you just got tied up with another interview or another task, then you might have to handle it with them the next day. Again, we're trying to do that in person or video chat if we have to, but the idea is you don't want to leave it too long. I usually want to try and get at it within 24 hours, maybe 48, because we don't want it so long that it becomes weird. Because some of the things that we're addressing are little, I don't want to say ticky-tacky stuff, but if I was to bring up, hey, you're 8 minutes late next Tuesday, and with today's Tuesday, that's too long. That's almost like, what are you even talking about? I want to handle that day if I can, or the next day. So we could also nip that in the bud, right? So Tony Robbins would say, if you're going to kill the monster, kill it when it's a baby. Godzilla, when he's 20 pounds, is way easier to kill than Godzilla when he's 3 stories tall. You know what I'm saying? So we want to get that lateness thing early, not when they've been late for 5 things, and now you're super triggered when they're doing it. So let's catch things early and try to find that balance. I'm encouraging you to trust yourself. You know, you'll try it. You'll mess it up. That's okay. You'll try to have a 1-minute redirect. Maybe you have your notes even. Hey, I want to make sure I do this right. Just be transparent with them. Disclose, hey, I'm working with some new management techniques. I want to make sure I handle your heart well. I got some notes here because this is really important to me that I get this right. So while we're new, I don't mind owning the fact that I'm new and I'm trying some new things out. It's all with an eye towards being a better leader for you, and that's what I'm going for. So it's okay as a leader to even be unsure as we're trying to restore them and trying to have that 1-minute redirect.
Yeah. That's a great point, Trent. And I want to acknowledge the fact that, listen, everyone, I know that you might be listening to this and thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this summer? I feel cringing. I'm cringing already just thinking about the difficult conversations. I was that person my first summer where I wanted people to like me. I wanted everything to be great. I didn't want to have to address conflict because I was afraid that I would steer them away. But I promise you that the perceived pain you have right now about the conflict is actually way less than the pain you will realize when your team all leaves because you're not holding them accountable because you actually haven't been facing the tough conversations.
Yep.
If your goals are big, that's going to require those difficult conversations. And this is one of those life skills that come with being a branch manager. Like, you will begin to realize that you can handle the petty drama of your college years like that because you've learned how to deal with difficult conversations in your branch office. So I want to open it up.
My daughter starts selling Cutco this summer. And
yeah.
As we're opening up for questions, but yeah, Katie, my daughter, starts selling Cutco this summer. I want her to branch. Not just sell Cutco. Selling Cutco is awesome. The full vector experience will be to deal with the adversity that you're about to deal with. What I'm suggesting is I hope she makes money, but even if she didn't make a cent, for her to get out there and lead her own team, recruit and build her own staff, and have difficult conversations and learn how to do that as a 20, 21-year-old, you cannot buy this experience. You cannot purchase it. It's not for sale. You have to earn it, and you've all earned the right for this. You're just about to experience this. Hear me right. This is about to be the hardest job you've ever had. It's also the most awesome. It can't be this good and this rich and this robust in terms of the experience without hard days. So when you have that really hard day, I want you to think back to this moment and go, oh, you did say I was going to have this. Oh, you did say I was going to have one of these. Oh, this is that day. Okay. You can even text me. I would love that. A little paycheck of the soul to go, oh, Booth, that just happened. I totally had a difficult conversation. I tried to redirect and I failed badly. It's so great. It's part of the reason you're going to be so awesome down the road. It's going to make you better parents. It's going to make you better doctors. Some of you will yes, choose Cutco as a career. You'll be here in 26 years like me. What I'm saying is that this experience is going to be so good for you, and I can't wait for it. So don't face this with trepidation. Like, go headlong into it, reread the book again, have it near you so that when you try it and mess it up, you can come back into it again. But you really are playing with house money at this point. So I had to editorialize that, but I definitely wanted some questions there if you guys got them.
Yeah. Nicholas Torrente, go ahead and unmute yourself. And
I parked my car this time.
Attaboy. Stay safe, man. I want to see you all summer. I don't want you getting in a wreck. That's no good.
Yeah. So I was kind of piggybacking off of what you guys just said. So obviously, I've talked to people. I've had those kinds of talks to people when it's like you don't want something to get repeated. But what I had trouble with was last team meeting. So I've run like 3 team meetings by now. Like the first one was a wreck. The second one was pretty good, but then the third one I was unprepared again. And then so obviously that kind of affected it when people kind of talked over me.
Sure.
And you know, the reps were very quiet, but what really kind of annoyed me was there was this one assistant manager. He was supposed to be leading by example, and then he kind of cut me off. And it was at a part that I really wanted him to hear because I heard him not following his script. And I was talking about phone skills, like how to handle objections, following the script. And then he kept talking, and I wanted to kind of, like, that's what I was going to ask about is, like, obviously, I talked to them afterwards. Like, I had talked to the person afterwards, but then I kind of called him out in the middle. I know I wasn't supposed to, like, say that in front of everybody, but that's the thing. How do you kind of shut it down and then make sure to kind of, like, continue that conversation later versus, like, just kind of, like, hey, like, zip it, and then they kind of continue?
Sure. Hey, do you prefer Nick or Nicholas?
I go by Nico.
Nico, even better. I love it when I give a choice, and then you're like, nope, third option. Okay, so Nico. So first of all, I want to commend you for just the fact that you're paying attention and trying. It matters, dude. I mean, so just keep trying your future on, see how it feels. Oh, I got to adjust it again. No big deal. What do you think you would do differently if you had a do-over? What if you had a mulligan? What do you think you might try differently next time?
I mean, I definitely wouldn't have called him out like I did because I could tell he was really embarrassed, and
Sure.
I know he was really excited. So
Sure.
it wasn't his first team meeting, obviously, but then it was like new reps were there, and he was kind of excited to see them there, I guess. So
Sure.
I feel like I would have just kind of stared at him maybe with like a mad kind of glare, and then he would have been like, "Oh, okay," because I'm pretty good with that. But
Sure.
yeah, I feel like I should have probably done that. But I'm not sure if there might be like other things that I could have done as well.
Well, listen, Nico, I'm willing to bet if you try that next time, it will be the exact opposite of what you feel, because you still might feel triggered, right? But you reining that in, and this is what's so hard, is like you might be raging and your heart says you are letting him off. Like your heart's like, you're doing this wrong. You might be doing it exactly right, but it will feel super wrong. It feels wrong to not lay into them, like they're getting away with it. And this was personal, and they should pay with blood. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? In the moment, you just get triggered, and it's emotional. So the reality is how you handle that person and the extra amount of grace that you can extend that person, people will notice when you kind of even just let him talk, or whether you look angry at him or, you know, give him the dagger eyes or just kind of let him finish. The point is people notice that you handled him well. In fact, the smart people will notice that he was out of line and you let him go. Do you know what I'm saying? You let him kind of take it, because then that's more in terms of psychological safety. They go, that's safe. Hey, I could tell he was upset, but he let him do it. Like that's a very high level of EQ if you can do that. And the smart people that are noticing, and they do, by the way, right? Even an 18-year-old might not be able to show their work, but they'll go, I know what that looks like. That's awesome, right? And they'll pick up on that. So what I'm suggesting is handling it well is not just great for that one person. It's also good for the whole group. Is there other things that you could try? For sure. My encouragement to you is to just keep thinking about what could I do? Hey, here's a recommendation, and I haven't mentioned this already. Keep a journal. Keep a journal of this stuff, right? The wins, the things I do right, but even more importantly, this one got away from me. I kind of handled it. I housed him in front of the team. It didn't feel good, right? This is how it went next, and this is what I wish I had done next time. By documenting that, here's what's so great. 3 years from now, 20 years from now, you might be leafing through this journal and you're like, man, I learned how to handle this when I was a branch. That's the day I learned how to handle this. Or it might be, oh, I used to do this and I've stopped doing it. I need to do this again. But for you to be able to track that, and folks, it's going to be busy. I'm a journaler, and when I went back to my branch journal, there was blank entries between April and June. Not a single entry when I launched my branch. I was busy, but it's so bad for me to miss that. I want to go back and slap 21-year-old Trent. I can't, but I can verbally slap y'all who are 21 to actually take the notes and do the journals as a gift to future self. And boy, never mind your kids. If your kids are, you get to look at you as a kid figuring out branch. That's what's great. So hey, there's probably 100 different ways, Nico. I'm reticent to handle it specifically just because I don't have all the context. You know the person, you know there's interpersonal dynamics, you were there, you can read the train probably better than I can. But what I love that you're doing is that you're replaying the tapes. And listen, when you mess up, what worst case scenario, you mess up and you handle it. If you haven't yet, going back to that at AM and telling him, hey, listen, how's that line last week? I really am looking for, as we covered afterwards, for you to be modeling listening, but how was that aligned the way that I handled that? For you to handle that with the manager restores trust, actually builds more trust than could have been there before. In other words, what could have been just a mess now actually builds a relationship with this person. And now you got something that you're locking arms with. And I might even say something like that. Hey, this is kind of messy and I apologize, but I'm hoping like a year from now, like you're running your branch and I'm running my second branch and we're just locking up and we're laughing about this. Like, that's fun. And that's also what they call future pacing, right? So future pacing is what Shelby was catching, was the idea that we're restoring them and making them feel good, taking it down a little bit, but also the idea that we're pacing them and projecting into the future what things are going to look like and a positive future together, which is fun.
Trent, I have a follow-up question from what Nico just asked.
Yeah.
I think people might be wondering this as well. We know that 1-minute redirects are meant to be like separate, not in front of other people. Now, let's say you're running a training class and it starts to get a little bit out of hand, and there's 1 or 2 people that aren't paying attention. They're talking to their neighbor. What would be your recommendation for regaining control of the training room without, like, the advice you gave to Nico is great. In a situation where letting it go and then waiting for the next break, it could almost be looked at as you're being a pushover in a way.
Yes.
How do you avoid that perception?
Great question. Shelby, I love this question because it also gives context to some of the counsel I was bringing to Nico, which was, hey, when I can, I'm trying to pause and give it time. There are times where that's inappropriate, where they're just repeatedly and almost like they're intending to wreck this, in which case we absolutely need to lead well in that moment. So various things that I will do, and you saw me do some of these this weekend too. It's funny is when I give all these tips up and then you guys see me live and you see me, like when somebody's talking, I'll typically walk beside them and I'll teach from right beside them. Now, sometimes before I even get over there, I'll absolutely make eye contact, or at least look them in the eye. If they were paying attention, they would be looking at me, type of thing. So by looking right at them, that's another way to get their attention. And I'm not housing them in that moment, but typically by making strong eye contact, that does communicate, hey, I'm watching and you're distracting. So I'll start with eye contact. From eye contact, I'll pause. And even that 3-second pause is painful, isn't it? It is alarming when you let 3 seconds go. I'll do it again. It is awkward AF. So in training, you stop talking and you're going to get people are going to snap to. That's great, especially then in that moment if you're making eye contact. It's like, thanks, great, glad you're here. But then I would, walk right beside them, and I would teach from right beside them, because now with proximity, my friend John Vroman says proximity is power. So when you're right beside that person, this is another application of what I believe to be a true ism, which is proximity is power. When I'm standing beside them in training, it's harder for them to feel like they can just range off. I also encourage you folks, sometimes it's really the fact that maybe they're just getting a little antsy. There's OCD, which is real. There's anxiety issues. There's a bunch of things that might cause legitimate reasons for them to just be having difficulty paying attention. So doing some of these things are a way to restore them without kind of housing them, but also at the same time getting some control back with your group, just kind of changing it up. Maybe it's time for a break. Maybe it's time for us to hey, let's take 10 minutes, folks. Instead of just being just angry that they've messed up my seminar, maybe this is hey, legitimately, I've taken them as far as I can get them with their attention span, and now we just need a little 8-minute break or 5-minute break, whatever it is. Some of our seminars go real long, folks. And I meant to also mention this. Shelby was describing a scenario where she got frustrated, especially in August. That is not uncommon, especially when you've been keeping long hours really since your summer preps, which is in April. The more tired that we are, the less nourished we are, the less relationally nourished that we are. August is usually that time where we get a little fried. And my encouragement to you is get the sleep that you need, get the nutrition that you need. I know there's been other topics on that. Those absolutely matter and are so relevant in terms of you being able to bring under control your emotional state. The amount of sleep that you got, it's not hyperbole to say that you getting the hours of sleep that you need absolutely affects you in that moment, even more than anything EQ I can train you. Just by having enough rest so that you can go to be able to take that break. Do not underestimate this one, folks, right? The goal isn't team no sleep. The goal isn't suck it up. The goal isn't be a better leader. The goal is take a nap. The goal is get the 7 hours that you need if you're a 7-hour person. If you're a 6-hour person, get the 6 hours. Get them. See if you can't get it started before midnight, too. Somebody was talking this weekend about that. It seems to know more about it than I do. She said, every minute you get before midnight counts as double. I'm like, that sounds awesome. And you know what? I don't know if it's science, but it sounds like reasonable to test, doesn't it? Like if you go to bed at 11, you're normally a midnight person, you start experimenting with going to bed at 11, it might be bulletproof. I don't know. Anyways, I went on some rabbit trails here, but this was an important topic I want to bring up is getting enough rest because it matters when it comes to this emotional intelligence piece. But the question, we got on the rabbit trail because we're talking about how to rein in a group here. Shelby, any other thoughts that are triggered for you as we were considering here how to rein in a group and maybe you've got a different context that I didn't address?
No, I think what you said was great. And I also noticed this past weekend that you did some of those tactics. Another tactic that seems to be super effective is when you specifically speak their name out loud. It's like, you're speaking and training and you just say, and Trent. So like I was saying, and you just say their name, they know that you're watching. And then their head all of a sudden comes up and they feel almost a little bit guilty because
it's
so I think that's a really effective tactic as well. And one more thing I want to mention, because you went down the rabbit trail, it's something that I'm really passionate about, this hashtag Team No Sleep. I know that there's some team names out there that are like that, but guys, it is not a badge of honor to be at your office until 12 a.m.
It's dumb.
I hear too many branches bragging about being at their office for 15 hours a day, and it's honestly BS. One of the top, if not the top manager in Canada is a mom and has to be home to have dinner with her kids every night of the week except for the night of her team meeting. Yet she is still the top manager. She has other obligations and she figures out how to do both. If she can do both while managing a household and her office and also a social life, you can too. It is way cooler to be well rested so that you can pour the necessary energy into each of your people than to be at your office until 1 a.m. doing things that you probably should have done at 8 a.m. because you don't it's better to get the sleep that you need than it is to pull an all-nighter. I promise you this. And if I hear this summer that you are in your office until 1 a.m., 2 a.m., you will be getting a call from me in the most pleasant way possible. But
it sounds like a 1-minute redirect.
It's because I love you and I care about you, and I did it to myself, and it's the reason why I burned out my second summer. Self-care, taking a break, 15 minutes to walk outside of your office, get some fresh air, leave your phone in your office. It's not being lazy, it's recharging. Even Teslas need to recharge. Cool? You guys are all Teslas and BMWs in my book. You need premium gas, aka great food, and you need to recharge, aka breaks and healthy sleep. So back out of the rabbit hole, here we are. Does anyone have any more questions regarding the 1-minute manager?
So while you guys are coming up with questions, to clarify the name thing. So when I say Michael's name, typically I'll be I hope you caught what Shelby did, because she modeled how to do it, which is she just mentions the name. There's no slam with that. There's no terseness with it. It's just, hey, so what we're talking about, Michael, is the 1-minute manager, and you just throw the name out and see if that catches them. I did it another way later, which Shelby noticed there. It was like Mitch. I totally put him on Front Street, and I was like, I gave him the WTF arms, and the look, and it got his attention, and then he finally reined it in, which is good. Part of it, though, is that I'm also looking to rescue him in that moment too, because people around him were super distracted. You know what I'm saying? So I am trying to rescue him in that moment, not just house him. I'm trying to do it with dignity and respect when I can, but my emotions got the better of me. But yeah, when we start with that, we typically start off with just mentioning the name. WTF Farms, I love it. I don't even know if that's a thing, but everybody knew what I was talking about when I'm like
An emoji.
it's the emoji. Oh, it's fun. So other questions or thoughts or comments or straight insults? What else you got for me, Branch Impact Group? My daughter just got her phone, by the way. You can't hear it, but she has dinged me 8 times in the last 28 seconds.
Oh, we can hear it. I heard it.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how to stop it. How do I make it stop?
Trent, you just put the phone on mute.
No, it's in my computer. It's not my phone. That's the worst part. Stop texting me. I love you.
Do not disturb.
Yeah. Do not disturb. So everyone, I'm going to actually give you all a contest. So for those of you who are kind enough to stay on the call till the very end, I'm very appreciative of all of you. So I'm going to give you a contest. As the summer goes on, we want the Branch Impact page to get more and more lively and vibrant and people asking questions. And this is a brilliant place for you to come and bring a scenario where you have to have a 1-minute redirect. Maybe you're a little bit nervous, but use the Branch Impact page to get feedback, to get advice, to get insight. Trent and I are both on that page. So if there's ever a situation where you're not 100% sure how to handle it, that is a totally appropriate comment to make in the Branch Impact page. And it will help build your confidence when you have other people giving you insight. So that's the first thing I want to say. But the contest that I'm going to give to you right now, I'm going to choose 3 people to send the 1-Minute Manager book to. And I'm going to choose those 3 people from the people who, after this call is over, go to the Branch Impact page and make a comment sharing 1 or 2 of their takeaways. Okay, to be clear, here's the contest. After this call is over, go to the Branch Impact page, share 1 or 2 of your takeaways just on the wall, and I will choose 3 people and I will send you the 1-Minute Manager book tomorrow. Okay? Y'all clear in that contest? Great, awesome. I love giving stuff away for free. It's free, it's for me. Any questions, final thoughts? Trent, anything for you?
No, I love what you said there, and I'll be mindful to continue, especially the next couple of days, if I can respond. I don't always, sometimes I'll throw a like up there, but I'll try to respond if as questions hit you, and they might. And folks, I just want to commend Shelby for what she's doing here. There's been nothing ever like this in the history of our company, 70 years, and only the last 2 have we had intentional space held for branch managers to be able to have community and be able to do life together just like this. And I just want to thank you, Shelby, publicly, and commend you here, 1 minute praising for all the great things that you're doing with the branch group. And I know certainly you're extending your influence is being felt well beyond the branch group. But hey, if this is all that you're doing, it's valuable, it's wonderful, and I'm sure that everybody here appreciates you. Maybe I could challenge the group here to do a little 1 minute praising for Shelby at some point over the next week or 2.
Oh, thanks, Trent.
Commended.
I appreciate you. All right, well, everyone, as always, it's been a pleasure spending this last hour with all of you. I'll have the amazing privilege of seeing many of you over the next couple of weeks at your kickoff conferences. As always, I just think what you're about to embark on is one of the most amazing and incredible experiences, and I am always here to help you in any kind of way. So as the summer gets started, you all know that there will be office hours on Wednesdays from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time. So what that means is that if you have a specific question, a scenario, you just need help in any kind of way, jump on that conference call. I'll be giving more details as it gets closer to the summer, but just so you know, that is an area where you have one-on-one access to me throughout the summer. In addition to that, I'm accessible through Facebook or Instagram, so if there's ever a question that you have that you just wanted to know on the fly, or you want to set up a call, I'm more than open to jumping on and getting on a call with all of you. That being said, it is right around 5 o'clock Eastern time, so I'll let you all go, but thank you very much, and have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Shelby.
Thank you, Shelby.
Yep, no problem.